Hello guys, okay, we're going to do some racking and bottling today. I've got some orange mead, cider, cherry mead there. That's another orange mead, and that's a Holy Moly Cyser, and that's really clear, as you can see. So that's going to be bottled. That's ready for bottling. A quick tip I use when I'm racking off, I've got a canister of CO2, and what I do is turn it on and inject a little bit of CO2 in. Just helps stop oxidisation. I use that when I'm actually racking off beer and bottling beer as well. Just a quick squirt. So turn the cap to get the gas. Couple of seconds. CO2 being heavier, sinks to the bottom, air gets pushed up. If you have your racking in line come down below, and it will gently circulate in a circle, the CO2 will rise, push the air out. Don't get so many problems with the oxidisation. And that's quite a bad thing with meads and wines, especially meads. I don't know why, maybe it's the sugar content. But yeah, so that's how I do my racking and that. So I'm going to start getting all the stuff sterilised, the racking tubes, the empty thing. And what I do is, I've always got one spare demijohn, so basically I rack, clean, sterilise, rack, clean, sterilise that, and then such and such. But I'm actually going to do the racking first, get them back out the way in the dark, and then I'll do the bottling of the Holy Moly Cyser, inspired by Jona himself. So that's it for the moment, and I'll get back to you when I'm done. I've racked off all the other meads and the cider. 2 orange meads and 1 cider has been racked off. All I've got left to do now is rack off the cherry mead. Now, the cherry mead I started a few months back. Half the fruit was added in the primary, and the second half was added in the secondary. Froze the cherries, and then I've thawed out the first lot. So I did it. Just breaks down the cell walls, releases the juices better. Racking off cherry mead. Well, normally I add a vanilla pod once I've got the fruit off, give it a taste. So I've got some Madagascan vanilla pods, the best. Split them down the middle, scrape the seeds out, put that in, and then just throw the pod in itself. I cut it in 2 pairs of sanitised scissors, and then leave it for a month. And that and then I'll taste it. But you can leave it 2 months. It depends how strong the pods are and how fresh they are. So about a month or 2 is about. The other thing I'm going to try this time, and this is why I did a gallon batch, because I wanted to do an experiment. So I'm going to add Mahlab, which is a spice from the ground outsides of the cherry stones. I don't know how they get it. It's the outside casing or something of the cherry stone. Now I've read online on the forums, and I got some information from another guy that makes meads down in Wales that I talk to quite a lot, and he's done a batch, and he said that it really does bring out the cherry flavour. So I thought I'd give it a go with a 1 gallon batch to get the measurements and the rates per gallon right. So I'm going to do, now I believe they usually add 2 to 3 for a 5 gallon batch, so I'm going to add half a teaspoon. And leave that in there for 2 months. Well, it'll be in there anyhow, 2 months, and then when I rack off, I'll taste it again and see what the difference is. Because then by that time it should be clear enough that when I rack off, it's totally clear, and I can judge the flavours. And then I'll leave it again, probably for another 2 months, and I might also add for a month some oak chips. Just to give it that complexity, the flavour. So you can really muck around with meads. You can really turn around and bring them up and make the honey shine later. By adding certain flavours, it brings out the honey later on when it's aged. So I'm going to go and rack off and add the vanilla spice and the Mahlab. And what I'll do is I'll show you how I prepare a vanilla pod to add into a demijohn. And I'll do one of the 54 litre things. There's loads of them, and I'll put about 8. I usually put 8 in for 2 months to go in. But the Mahlab's a new spice to me. Lots of good words about it, so I'm going to give that a go. So I'll be back with you shortly. Right, what I do, like I said, I put a bit of CO2 in first, helps stop the oxidisation. So I put it in, back it up, and then I top it up again with a bit of CO2 just to force any air that might be there before I put the seal on. You know what it is? A couple of seconds. That's enough. And so I'm not getting splashes, so I always put mine right down at the bottom. I hold it up. So the liquid is actually again going underneath rather than on top. No splashes, no oxidisation. Saves wasting a lot of alcohol. So that's basically how you rack off. As you can see, I've grabbed a little bit of the yeast it disturbed because it washes off the fruit, but that's not a problem, because when you actually rack off fruit and that, and you've got some of the bit of the yeast, you're actually grabbing some live yeast as well, and that will settle down. Now I'm going to cut up the vanilla pod and add the Mahlab. And like I said, it's the first time I've used it, so I'll add that, and then I'm going to top up the headspace. I think I've probably got about half a litre, so I'm going to make up half water and probably about half a pound of honey, just to top it up so I get to the neck of the headspace. Should carry it will ferment, but it won't bubble like mad, and that'll help the Mahlab to distribute around the demijohn and evenly flavour it. Okay, a bit of difficulty because on the other hand, I split the poly right in two. When you're actually brewing, so I might actually only do this for a month to get it off the vanilla. What you're trying to do is get as much contact surface area with your additive. So some people just split the pod, scrape the seeds and throw the whole poly in, and it's basically like that. I know, I cut it in two, scrape the seeds out, then I cut these into sections as well, because when you rack off it's going to be at the bottom, and that gives us more of the alcohol within the drink to make contact. That's why oak chips are used, because more surface area is available for the alcohol to take on the tannins. Same principle, cut them up into, I don't know, 1.5 to 2 inch lengths after stripping the seeds, throw it in, and then you'll get the transfer of flavour at a better rate than you would otherwise. And like I say, after a month, because it'll be fermenting with the extra honey and that, give it a little taste, and I might leave it, or I'll rack it off and let that, and then we'll just let it go for about 3 or 4 months to age. Then we'll start to bottle it. Right, as you can see, you've got the vanilla spice, the seeds are floating, and the spice is just sat on top. Now I'm going to add some more liquid and honey in there, but before I do, little tip: if you want to stir stuff in gently in your demijohn, chopstick, plastic chopsticks, they're brilliant. Sanitise them and then just use them to stir very gently. You don't want to oxidise it. I've put CO2 in. I could give it another blast of CO2 if I really was worried, but just a chopstick and give it a very gentle stir, and that will sink it. As you can see, starting to sink. And that's a nice little tip from me. Okay, I've put the honey and water in to make it up to just under, so let's have a look at the mark, about 350. I reckon that's about right. You don't want to incorporate a lot of oxygen, you don't want to incorporate any oxygen, so what you're better off doing is gently mixing in with a small whisk. Got my little yeasty mixy, little one. Gently start to stir it and start to try to mix it up without whisking in any air, and then throw it in the microwave for 30 seconds just to warm it up a bit. Cold liquid holds more gas, warm liquids don't. That will get rid of the oxygen level that you can. And another trick is to turn around and blast the jug with a bit of CO2, and if you do that gently stir in air, you're only actually stirring in CO2. So that's what I do. It's a bit hard trying to record one-handed. I've got a damaged hand, so what I'll do, I'm hardly stirring it at all. It took a little bit of work to get going, but once that honey starts to go, it will gently dissolve in the water. It does mix. You've just got to be very gentle. I've blasted it with CO2 off camera because I'm doing all my videos on my phone at the moment because my video camera has been put away and my missus can't remember where she put it. So it's hard to hold a camera and blast jug with CO2. I'll give it quite a good blast. So there's quite a blanket of CO2 in that jug. But I'm not whisking it enough to break the surface. It's just to mix in and incorporate the honey in the water. So you can see that's about the pace. And it's like stirring it. Right. Now that is mixed enough. Right, now we're ready. That to top up. I've got to. You're going to have to excuse me at the moment because it's one leg, one hand, so I've got to sit down and do this, otherwise I overdo it. So again, just spring water, Tesco spring water. That's what I use in the initial mix. And just gently, not splashing it too much. Just trying to get any bubbles in there. You're just trying to pour it in very slowly. You can run it down the side. If you go there. Just pouring it gently. Funnel's good, but you might get more air in. You're better off doing a very gentle pour. Keep it a single line, or like I say, run it down the side if you can, like that. Running down the side of the demijohn now, so there's no air getting into that, or no oxygen making contact. And I reckon I've got that just about right. Let's have a look. That ain't far off. We're nearly there. Well, that wasn't a bad guess, was it? So I reckon that was about a quarter. There's a couple of bit of honey, which is about a quarter of a pound out of the honey supplies, and oh mate, wild honey, fresh honey from a beekeeper, cannot beat it. Get friendly with your beekeepers. Honestly, get used to the beekeeper. Bribe them with some mead or some beers, and they'll give you some honey free, and then you can make some marvellous meads because the flavour of it is totally different. But that's how you do a cherry mead. That's how I rack off the fruit at the vanilla pod, and now I've got this Mahlab, which is a cherry seed spice. So I'm trying that with that. And this is why I've not started the big batches of cherry mead. I'm doing about 50 litres, but I've held off because I want to see what this Mahlab's like. Because if it brings out more flavour, then obviously I don't need so much fruit in the secondary. Or so much fruit in the primary, which means I've got more fruit for the secondary, which gives it more colour. So that's it. So today's been quite a good day. Done 3 rackings off, 4 rackings off, and now I've just got to do some bottling, which is the Holy Moly Cyser. Because Jona's coming down tomorrow, and I'm going to give him bottling. So be a nice surprise for him. Last job of the long Saturday, and keep getting interrupted. We've had the grandkids round, so I had to stop. Is to bottle the Holy Moly Cyser and measure the final gravity. The original gravity was 1138, hence why Jona said Holy Moly, and I said, well, that's the name of it. It's a blackcurrant, Ribena blackcurrant, cider, apple juice, and honey. It's £2 of honey in that one. So I'm going to give a few bottles to Jona to pass on to the lads up in London, and I'm going to try and send one to Harry because he sent down his last tiny portion of chili cider, the chili cider of doom. So when you do get it, it will be in a Krabby's bottle, and the label will be on. I'll cover it, but it will be in a Krabby's bottle. I haven't had time, and it's difficult one-handed, as you can see, to try and delabel them, and they are a bitch as well, but I like the style of bottle. So I'm going to get on with bottling that. Now if the final gravity is quite low, it will mean the alcohol strength is very high. And this is pretty raw, so it's going to be hot. So when I do send it to you, you're going to have to age it and sit on it for a while. And as hard as it may be, it's going to have to sit. And I would recommend, at least, if it gets up to where I think it's going to be, it's going to have to be sat on till at least May Day next year. So it's an early present for next year's brewing. So lads, I'm going to bottle it up, and tomorrow I'll see Jonah, and I'm going to give him a big bottle so he can open it up when he moves. But honestly lads, I would honestly say to you, sit on it, because it will be a bit hot. Let it mellow out a touch. Probably need about 6 months, I reckon. Right, I've just measured the AVB, or the final gravity. I don't know if you see that. So I get it round, get round. It came out at 1016, and calculations is that's roughly about. So I'll work this out now. That's about 16%, or just shy of 16%. So that's quite a strong cider. So it's quite hot on the tongue. It's quite sweet. It's quite hot on the tongue, so I think it's going to need a good 3-4 months to age in the bottle, and it'll be really drinkable.